So I'm going to show you some tricks and tips that I wish I would have known when I first started doing acrylic. So let's get started. So I'm going to start off with some tricks and fundamentals for acrylic, especially when you're a beginner. If you're not a beginner, it reminds you, because sometimes you get off key and wonder why you're not going so fast or why it's not going so smooth. So I want to show you all the things and share all the things that I know with you. So I'm always going to start pushing back the cuticles. What this does, this is a huge tip as well. I never skip this step. I don't care how long I've done nails, it's so important. What it does is it shows you where there's cuticle growth. Sometimes you'll see a little white spot stuck there. That's where actually your skin and your cuticles stuck to your natural nail. So it's important to see where it's located. So never skip that step. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is always prep with an electric file. It's much better than trying to use a file. When you use a file, it's hard to get into your corners. So getting proficient with your electric file is huge. So what I'm going to do is start it and use it on 5,000 RPMs. You could use it between 3 and 5. They're all correct. It's whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm going to go ahead and start with prepping my cuticle area with little baby circles around the cuticle. So as you can see, I kind of hit it, break, hit it, break, hit it, break. Okay, then what I'm going to do is tickle the rest through and just prep the entire nail. Now the key to this is not leaving big grooves into the nail. You're not putting pressure. All I'm doing is removing the shine. And by removing the shine, what that does is going to help prep the nail so everything weaves on top of it. And all the product stays on very well from there. So I'm going to do baby circles around my cuticle again and prep all the way through. Okay. From there, what I'll do is go ahead and dust off the fingernails. Then I'm going to go into swipe to change my pH balance. This is also going to remove any oils or debris in the nail. So important, right? So I'll go ahead and come forward. What this does is extract everything out of my cuticle and my sidewall area. Let's get rid of our dusty section here. We'll first start with our overlay, okay? So I'm going to protein bond both of them just to get them ready. Apply one coat on all 5 on one hand, and then go to the other hand on all 5. Then once you go through all 10, by the time you come back, you'll be ready to second coat your nail. Okay, once you have 2 coats on, we're ready for application. Okay, first I kind of want to go over our brush. If you notice, our brushes are pinched right here. So if you look at it from the side right here, it's a lot thinner. You have kind of what I call the spine of the brush on the side and the flat part here. So you're always going to pick up your product on one flat side or the other, never on the side of it, okay? The same with your liquid. When you go into your liquid, you're not going to go in sideways like this. You're always going to go in straight and then tap off from that side. Always pay attention to that. A lot of times I see when I'm training people, they'll just go in and like tap here on the side. It's not going to pick up your pearl right from your powder. Okay, it kind of is like ergonomically not correct when it's a pinch brush. Now some companies sell round brushes here. I've used both. My favorite's pinched because it's always controlled. So that's why we make pinched. I feel like it's easier to work with. Okay, so there's a huge tip there. Another thing is sometimes you feel like you're not picking up a big enough pearl with your acrylic or with your liquid on your brush. You're not able to pick up a big enough pearl. There's a couple things that could be happening. The first thing that could be happening is when you come in here, you're swiping off too much liquid. So if you look really, really close at this, when I come in here and I put pressure and I kind of swipe, you see the tip of it swell up with liquid. Okay, what you're doing is you're wiping out most of the liquid, and when you're touching your powder with your brush, every time you're touching it with the powder, it's letting out liquid and picking up powder, letting out liquid and picking up powder. So if you don't have enough liquid, you're not going to be able to pick up a big enough pearl. Okay, so I'll give you an example. If you come here and you come to pick up your pearl, you should have a way bigger pearl than that to get started, okay? So let's go back and come in here, tap it, same amount of times in, and look at the size of my pearl, okay? Huge difference, right? So remember that. There's one other thing. Sometimes you need to, and I do it about every third nail, I go into my liquid, so let me go off to the side to show you what I'm gonna do. So when I'm in my liquid, it's kind of round like this. I'll go in at an angle, okay? So I'll go in at an angle, I'll push down on my brush and my bristles do this, and I come back up. What that does is it opens everything up and allows all the liquid to come back in my brush, okay? So I'll come at an angle like this, push down, and then come up, tap, pick up a pearl, bouncing on top, and there you go. Okay, so those tips right there are huge for picking up your acrylic. It's very basic, but if you always go back to your fundamentals and your tips that you first learned, you always get back in the groove of things. So let's go from here. Okay, for my overlay, what I'm gonna do is always start in a reverse. So let me go over the reverse before I get started. I kind of like to explain before I get started because it happens so fast, but I'll kind of go with my movement right here with my brush. So once I have my product on, you'll notice when you see us work, our finger is anchored down, okay? Always gravity is gonna help you. You'll never see any of us set something down flat like this. And the reason being is when you set it down flat like this, which way is your product going to run? It's going to run cuticle into your sidewalls. If you set it like this and you set it kind of right where you want it and walk it around, what you're doing is you're contouring your cuticle area and getting it ready, so when you hold it straight down, gravity will help pull it down and it's already overlaying it for you. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Come right here, pick up a pearl. I like to count to 5, 3, 4, 5. The reason why I count to 5 is it starts to set it up a little for me and it doesn't run so fast. So what I'm gonna do now is hold her down, our fingernail, kind of anchor it down, walk it around the cuticle. See, I have plenty of time. I'm gonna hold her straight down. While I'm holding her straight down, she's physically moving right now. Her product is moving. Once it quits moving, I bring it up, I blend everything in right here so it kind of won't move anymore on my free edge. And I take zone 2 and 3 and bring my product down. 2 and 3 of my brush, not the tip of my brush. Let's wipe off some of the liquid. So see, I'm able to maneuver it wherever I want. Let's say, let me make it a little wider. Let's say I accidentally press a little more and it gets real wide on one side, okay? How do I fix that? Your spine right here on your side, you come in with it on your sides. This tightens everything up. Your flat part moves your product everywhere it needs to go. Okay, see that again? I'll give you a little example, see how it'll tighten everything up. The other parts move everything that you need. The only time you're going to use your tip is when you're blending or blending everything in, or when you're setting down your product. Okay, so that's your overlay. I see right here I didn't push far enough, no big deal. I wasn't really looking at the side of it. There we go. Everything's fixable, right? How was I able to fix it? Because I know how to use my brush. I pushed it over with the flat part and I brought it in with my side. So you could fix anything that way, okay? So once you have your overlay, let's go on to her extension right here. I like to put my tab on the back, pre-pinch it, and let's come in here. Okay, now my movement on my extension, similar to my overlay, but I have to build my extension first, right? So then I could overlay my whole extension. When I'm going to go over it real quick before I do it. When I pick up my pearl, I'm gonna draw out my monomer. And when I draw out my monomer, let me give you an example. Look at right here. When I set it down, all the bristles are flat. When all the bristles are flat on it, what it's doing is absorbing my liquid, so it's gonna set up a lot faster. My product's going to set up a lot faster. If I do not put it down like this and I just put it down like this, you're still going to have all the liquid in here, and when you set it on your free edge, what's it going to do? It's going to run everywhere, and you're going to be babysitting it and chasing it. Okay, so I'm going to demo how you do your free edge and where you go from there. Okay, so let's come here. Let's pick up a pearl. Let's drain it. 2, 3, 4, 5, plenty of seconds there. Go ahead and press. I wipe my brush, and I use zone 2 and 3 of my brush. Bring it up even, walk it back. Bring it up even, walk it back. Oh, my form moved a little. No big deal, just go ahead and fix it. That's reality in salon, right? Once you have it even on your side, sometimes you have a lot more on this side. All you do is press it, bring it even, and on that product, you walk it back to your sidewall. Could also make it a little shorter. I was kind of getting carried away. But do you see how I brought it in? On my pinched part right here is your strongest part of your brush, okay? Make sure you're always using your pinched part when you're tightening up your acrylic nail. Okay, once you have your extension here, now what I'm going to do is overlay the whole thing. So let me taper in a little bit more. There we go. So now I'm going to repeat the process I did with my overlay here. It's a bit of a longer nail, so I'm going to add an extra step, okay? So I'm going to come in my liquid, tap off, pick up a good sized pearl, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, anchor her finger, place it down. I'm going to walk it all the way around her cuticle area and see how I pivot my brush. You see how I pivoted my brush? That's huge. If you don't pivot your brush, you're not going to get your corners. Hold her straight down. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just blend in my sides and blend in everything with zone 1 of my brush. Blending everything in. Okay. As you can see, I'm left with an extra step. I could bring all this product down, but you don't want to, because when you do reverse, you could see all your product right here. You're already building up your apex and your stress point, right? So what I'm gonna do is add a second one. So I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna take out half of my liquid because I don't need much of a pearl. Come here, and I'm gonna come backward with it and melt it into the nail, okay? Then what I'm going to do is with zone 1, bring it down, wipe my brush off. And I'm using zone 2 and 3. Now I'm using the side to tighten everything up. Come right here. So I'm always using my flat parts. Okay, I'm not sure that if you noticed, I didn't stress it, but it's really important. Right here on the free edge, I put pressure on zone 3, so you could see it kind of making that shape already. And it pushes everything up to zone 2. That's where your apex is. You don't need your free edge to be really thick. You want it thinner. So if you could put pressure on zone 3 and make it thinner already, that's nice. There's another thing I didn't stress that's so important. Let me move the hand to the side. When I'm working on the nail, I see people wipe like this or just hit it and go back on the nail. Like, let me give you a little example here. So if you come here, you're working on something and then you want to take off liquid and you do this. That's not how you wipe your brush. This is how you wipe your brush. You physically wipe it back and forth. So what this is doing is it's extracting all your acrylic that's getting hooked on your brush. So that helps too for your brush not to get stuck when you're working. You notice how it wasn't sticking. Wiping your brush is very, very important. Okay, so now this dried, let's go ahead and take off the form. Let's get my dust extractor. Okay, I'm going to change my bit. You have to use a coarse bit for this. Otherwise, you'll be there a really long time and it will create heat. So I'm going to go with our coarse safety bit. Okay, This will give you confidence to electric file. You're not gonna, if you hit their cuticle, it's not going to cut them. You could come up on their side still. You could electric file with confidence with this. So I'm gonna use this for sure. You actually could use an X-cut as well. They're both the same grid. The only difference is this is a little longer with an edge and this one doesn't have an edge, okay? So I'm gonna use it on 12,000 RPMs. Yeah, 12. Let's turn on our dust extractor. And we'll do our overlay first. So our overlay, basically what we're gonna do, let me go over some zones real quick with you. On your drill bit, or your electric bit, I should call it, has zones. You have zone 1 at the tip, zone 2 in the middle, and zone 3 at the end. Your fingernail actually has zones as well. So if I'm looking at it like this, you have zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. If I'm looking at it as a whole, it changes to zone 1, 2, and 3. So when you electric file, you're gonna meet your zones. When I'm on my side here, I'm gonna use zone 1, going to zone 2, see how it's touching zone 2? Zone 3, the very end, going up to zone 2, okay? When you come in this way, you're meeting zone 1, and you're meeting zone 3 here. Okay, so let's get started. We'll do baby circles around the cuticle. Now let's talk about pressure, okay? This is contact with acrylic. It's not really doing anything, right? So you want to make contact with slight pressure, not a whole lot of pressure, but slight pressure. So what you're going to do is come around and have slight pressure. When you have slight pressure, it takes off just enough where you're not taking off too much, but it's shaving it off very well. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating my arch, okay? Zone 3, bring it up to 2. Zone 1, bring it up to 2. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my sides and blend them in with zone 1. Now here I'm putting very little pressure. You do not want to put a lot there because you do not have much product. And I'm looking at my fingernail the whole time. I'm not looking at what my bit's doing. I know that sounds crazy, but it's kind of like when you drive a car, and I use this example a lot. When you drive a car, you look ahead, right? And you naturally aim. If you're gonna look at the road, you're not gonna know where you're going. So you have to look at your nail and your hand will naturally go where you're looking, okay? That's a huge tip right there. Blending everything in. And then coming through here and making sure it's all blended in. Okay, so on to the next. Now this one's a little different because it's not an overlay. I kind of need to create the shape, right? So if you look from the side right here, when you have a form, you're gonna have to shape your sides. If I put all this hanging down, if I put my finger even with her growth channel right here, all this hanging down on the bottom needs to be filed off, okay? You could do it with a hand file or electric file, okay? So if you're gonna use a hand file, what you'll do is you would come in straight here and make sure it's real straight. Measure it, see what's hanging. You'll start at your lowest part. Right here is your lowest. I'm not coming in here. If you come in here and file, you're gonna notch it out right in the middle. So you're gonna start at the lowest part, keeping your file straight, and as I file, it'll come up even with my growth channel. So I'll come here and file, 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 and as you can see, I'm getting closer, and right now I just met it. Okay, so now look, there's nothing hanging, okay? You could do it with your electric file as well. That's more of a speed technique. Let's see if you could see from the top camera right now. All this hanging right there needs to come off, okay? So I'm gonna bring it on the lowest part right here, and I'm gonna file until it comes straight right here with my sidewall. So I'm gonna file, 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 and there it goes, meeting right here in the center. Okay, so what this does is bring out your low parts that's hanging, and it makes your nail look more thin and petite now. Okay, so from there you could use your file for everything, your electric file. If I was going to use my electric file, I would have came down right here and touched up and brought it up, okay? But there's a couple ways you could do it. I just wanted to break it down so it made a lot of sense to you. So I'm gonna come in here and square this off. I like to come up right here and make sure it's real tight. Then what I'm going to do is go around my cuticle area. Then bring it in to zone 2. Now I'm putting slight pressure. Now notice, I'm staying on top of the nail. You never see my bit disappear. If you see your bit disappear right here, you don't know where you're gonna hit them on this side, okay? So it's so important when you're doing this maneuver right here that you're just staying on top of the product. What you're actually doing here is creating your stress point, your natural arch. You're making it look like a really well-balanced nail at this point, okay? So from here, what I'm going to do is look down the barrel of the nail. And if I show you this way, it looks kind of wonky. So I want you to see what it looks like. It needs to come in through here. There's a little more bulk right here. So I'm going to bring in zone 1 of my bit, touching it to zone 1 of my fingernail, right? So I'm going to bring it all the way through, and then I'm going to come over here with zone 3 and come in through here. I have to see what I'm doing, so now that's exactly what I'm looking at, what I just showed you, okay? So I'm going to come up right here. Let's go ahead and blend this in. Go ahead and blend in this side. Kind of all needs to be blended in. I could see I could bring in my sides a little bit more. So I'm gonna bring them in a tad bit more. Let's do this side. You still could come in with your electric file. Now again, I'm not putting a lot of pressure. I'm making contact with very little to slight pressure, okay? Let's shape our nail right here. Let's shorten it a tad bit, just a tad bit. There, I like that better. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and blend everything in here. And I'm done with electric filing. Now I like to file not on top of this. It's easier for me to move it. Some people like to file on top of it. Whatever's comfortable to you, both are correct. So let's file our overlay first. So what I'm gonna do is make sure my sidewall's straight. See my file work right here? How I put my finger on this side and I file straight. This is going to make sure that my sidewalls are even with my product. Now when I do the opposite side, I put my fingers right here so it braces the finger. This is a huge, huge tip, because when I first started, I would just file away and my clients' fingers would be sore, my fingers would be sore, and they never would come out completely straight. If you put pressure here and file on the opposite side, they're not going to feel anything, it's not going to hurt, and it's more comfortable even for you. So the opposite side, you put your thumb here to brace it, and this side you put your fingers, okay? Let's kind of swivel this off. Now what I'm going to do is kind of look at my free edge as I blend everything in, make sure it's really tight. Blend everything in on the sides. Now our fingernails go like this, so you have to file it down that same way. So I'll go in slow motion. Your file's kind of doing this, and it's parallel on the nail. Okay, all of our nails go down like that, so you have to blend everything in that same way. Cuticle area onto your extension. Same thing, you're going to go through all your points of filing. So it's basically a 5-point filing, okay? So the reason why we call it a 5-point, you do 5 different maneuvers on one nail before you blend everything in. So let me explain it to you. Your first point's right here, okay? See my thumb right here? It's anchoring her finger. I'm going straight up and down. I'm not bringing it in, I'm going straight up and down, bringing it even with my sidewall. My other side, I'm going to put my fingers here. So that was 1. This is 2. Bring in your other side. And sometimes you may have to look and see. I need a little more on this side. Go back to your point 1 if you have to, and back to your point 2 till it looks petite and how you want it to look. So that's 1 and 2. 3 is right here. Still is a tad bit hanging, So I come right here, this is 3, and I file till it meets the middle. Okay, that's 3. Here, I need a little bit more here. This is 4 points. I'm at my 4th, let me make sure she's in there. So this is 4. Come here and make sure it's straight, and this is 5. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you blend everything in. Now, what if this was a different shape? What if it was a shape like mine? It would become a 4-point filing, right? Because you would go here, 1, 2, 3, 4, because it comes to a point. So square is 5-point, and my shape's 4-point. Okay, so from here, what I'm going to do is look, client profile, and make sure that they're straight. I may favor a little bit of a side, but this right here, you'll see if you need to get anything a little bit more. That looks pretty straight. This one here, blend it in. This is totally square. Okay, so those look good. So from here, what I'm going to do is take my brush, my manicure brush, dust off her hand, and I kind of dust off Sally a little better. Then I'm going to go into swipe, and what swipe does is it changes our pH balance. So it's going to remove all that dust we just created and get it ready for our gel polish or our top coat, whatever we're going to do on top of these. So extract it this way so everything comes out of the cuticle and the sidewalls. Okay, so from here what I'm going to do is put Protein Bond, and I'm going to finish with my top coat of choice. You could put gel polish on this way, whatever you want to do. She's wearing a nude nail, so I'm going to put top coat on from here. So I'll use Ultimate Finish. Okay, this top coat's awesome. It has a non-tack finish when it dries. All you do is put rose oil on and send them on their way when you're done. So I'm going to go ahead and put my top coat on. When you go in, you want to come out on one side so you have all your product on the front. Okay, it's much easier when you do that. Then that way it polishes with ease. Put it under. I usually just let her go in and let the timer run through. It's usually a 2-minute timer. It gives me an opportunity to clean up, but it does cure fully in 1 minute. Now she came out of the light. They're super shiny. Now my last tip I could give you that I wish I knew when I started doing acrylic was rose oil. Rose oil is my #1 resale item, and I give it to them when they get a new set from me, the small ones. And what it does is it gets them hooked on it, because what it does actually is condition their cuticles, and when their nails grow out, they still look like they're new because there's no dry spots. So my clients will literally say, I didn't use it for a week, and you could tell. Like, they realize what it does. So it works with our system, and it helps you in the long run because you don't have a lot of cleanup when you're starting their nails. So it's simple. All you do is put it on right here, and sometimes I'll put it underneath a little dot because it gets dry underneath their nails, and I rub it all in, and literally it is absorbed in their nails by the time they get to their car. So it's an amazing oil. That's the last tip I could share with you. I hope you enjoyed this. It was super fun to do, and see you soon.
Give us one of these if you liked our video. We always want you to subscribe.